All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Jerry Merkins. With me is CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. What's up, Cody?
Oh, not much. I'm just excited to be talking about our topic du jour.
What does that mean?
It's the soup of the day.
That sounds good. I'll have that. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in because we got a little bit of a late start because we were sort of shooting the you-know-what on Facebook and Periscope. But we can dive into our Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystore.outfitters.com. You can sign up for the giveaway on our Facebook page, by the way. And the winner this week is Ben. It's Ben G. It's not Benji. It's Ben G. From Baltimore, Maryland. So Ben, you've got Country Store hat heading your way along with copies of our ebooks, which our new Best of 2018. It's a little bit late, but our Best of 2018 is dropping this week, so you'll get a copy of that as well. And anyone who didn't win this week can sign up on our Facebook page. And while you're on our Facebook page, which I should have pulled up before we started the live stream, I feel like you did this every week, so I don't feel quite as bad.
Yeah, no, I did literally every week. Every week.
But while you're on our Facebook page, go ahead and answer a question of the week, which this past week was, yeah. I for the life of me cannot remember what last week's question was. It wasn't the camera. The camera was the week before.
What was last week? Oh my gosh.
This is what we call dead air.
And it gives us a great opportunity for a question.
Oh wait, was it? Do you know what a battle royale? It was. Do you know what a battle royale game is?
Oh, and I yeah, that's right. Because I kind of answered that ahead of time.
Yeah, and actually, you were one of the few. Well, you kind of got it. So you might have. I'm not sure if you answered it in yes or no. But we got a ton of yes votes. Way more yes than no, which is shocking. Which I guess just shows how prevalent battle royale games are in the news. I mean, I guess there's stories about them all the time, and there are. I can't even.
Did you say battle royale games in the news or the nude?
I think both now.
Oh, okay,
There probably are nude battle royale games. If there's not, that's an untapped market.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Fortnite's been in the news. Ninja's on ESPN now. Ninja is a Fortnite streamer, although I think he streams Apex now, which is another battle royale game. There's so many battle royale games and so many battle royale streamers. So I guess it's not entirely surprising that sort of people are aware of what battle royale games are. It's kind of weird because they're only a year old, but I guess that's how quickly stuff moves now.
Right.
But go ahead and hop on our Facebook page and answer next week's question of the week, which is, have you bought a computer in the past 3 years? And this is actually from one of our viewers, a suggested question of the week. So thank you for that question, and hop on our Facebook page and answer that. Anyone else? I know for me, I'm a no on that one.
I'm a no too, and we're getting. This is maybe a pop-up episode, but we're getting to the point where the same issue that faced the auto industry, we're going to start facing. So like, I drive a 2000 Ford F-250.
2000?
Yes, a 2000. So like, it has a 7. The reason I do is because it has a 7.3 engine in it, and it was like the last year. Not the last year. There was, I think it was 2002. But after that, Ford was like, we need to stop making 2 reasons. Number one, emission standards changed. So that forced engines to be less productive pretty much. But also it was like, Ford's like, we got to stop making engines that work so well because no one's buying new trucks.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point with like phones and computers as well.
It's a conundrum. It's a definite conundrum. It's a pickle. I have a short anecdote on that, and I think I told you about this, but it snowed here in Las Vegas. It snowed almost a foot, which is absolute madness. And I think everyone lost their minds to the point that they didn't know what was going on. They completely lost track of their possessions, and one of the possessions that someone lost track of was their iPad, and it looked like a new iPad, one of the new iPad Pros. I found it on a bush Sunday morning when the snow was starting to melt. It had been out at least overnight for Saturday, possibly overnight since Friday. There was ice on the screen. You know, it was wet. It was in what I assumed was unrecoverable position. Brought it home, put it inside, put it in some rice to dry it out. The next day it turned on. Not only did it turn on, it had a peripheral, like a keyboard peripheral that worked perfectly fine. So I returned it back to the person whose iPad it was because I recognized them from their screensaver or their whatever you call it picture when you turn the iPad on, and I'm guessing it's perfectly fine. So if you build a device that can last through overnight snowstorm, people aren't going to need to replace that device very often. It's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably why Apple's losing so much money.
Yeah, it
or
really
not
is.
making as much as they have been.
So it's like you have to find this balance of where something lasts long enough to keep consumers happy, but also doesn't last so long that you never make any money again.
Yeah. And I guess on that point, hop on our Facebook page and answer the question of the week if you've bought a computer in the past 3 years. And I'm genuinely curious to see how many people have, because I would imagine it's a low number, because those old MacBooks, I mean, they're great machines. So anyways, hop on our Facebook page, answer that question. You sign up for the Country Store giveaway too while you're there. But let's go ahead and dive into our topic of the week this week, the topic du jour, which is something that's near and dear to our hearts for sure, and it's something we're making a big push on now, but it's reporting and tracking for business development. So what are the key metrics? Let's start with that. The key metrics as far as business development goes. What numbers should you really be focused on tracking?
2 of them. If you can't answer these 2 questions, you really shouldn't be doing business. And that's customer lifetime value and cost of acquisition. Those 2, simply put, if you can't answer those questions, you really have no business even like opening like a fruit truck on the side of the road.
So talk about those 2 metrics, define them, and what values go into it.
Yeah, and again, you need to be able to have a good estimate and then refine those estimates to be more and more exact. And so customer lifetime value is basically the value, i.e. how much money will the average customer give you in the lifetime of their relationship with you. The cost of acquisition is simply how much does it cost you to get a new customer. And I kind of, when I say customer, I use customer and client interchangeably in these conversations. It's just a lot easier than saying customer/client over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And what tools are you using to track these metrics? Is it through a CRM, or do you have a separate application that you use, or what's the best way to keep track of this stuff?
Yeah, and we get to the topic now of why people don't do this is because it's hard. It's not easy at all. And so there's no singular tool that will tell you this. So for example, when you go out, and again, let's use networking as cost of acquisition here. And let's say I have 4 meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings with a prospect before I close them. Well, the cost of those meals needs to go into your cost of acquisition. And so basically what we do is we'll write the name of the prospect on the receipt that we then file afterward for our bookkeeping. So that number goes into QuickBooks, but it's tagged with networking and also the client's name or the prospect's name at that point. So then when we generate our reports at the end of the month, that's one data source that we have to go to and look is our QuickBooks account to see how much did we spend to close this client. That may not be the only source of funds we use to close this customer. We may have had a email campaign where this customer originally found us from. We have to figure in the cost of that email campaign as well. That's not going to be in QuickBooks. That's going to be more in like your MailChimp report, or maybe even like your AdWords report. So it's cobbling together a bunch of different sources, and it's time consuming, and people are just like, it's not worth it. But if you cannot answer those questions, then there's really you don't even know if you're going to be successful. You don't even know if you are successful in your business endeavors.
The best you can do is just guess at whether the stuff you're doing is working, basically.
Right. And more importantly, basically, as long as your cost of acquisition is less than your customer, as long as your customer lifetime value is more than your cost of acquisition, you should do more and more and more of it. Like if your cost of acquisition is 0 and or $1, let's say, and your customer lifetime value is $100,000, you're really screwing up. Like you should be doing much more than to get more customers. Like if your cost of acquisition is $1, your customer lifetime value is $1 million, and you're getting one customer every month, let's say, then you should be doing everything you can to increase your cost of acquisition to get 2 customers per month, kind of thing.
It's interesting too, because there's a bit of an art to the science in terms of, even if you're only making $1 on a customer, you might get a contract for $50,000 and it costs $49,999 to acquire them. The referrals you get from that client might add on to the 50 grand that you get directly from them. I mean, it might even get to the point where, and maybe you disagree here, but even if you're losing money on a client, but it's a client who, and maybe this goes into the calculation for the lifetime customer value, I wouldn't think it would, but even if you're losing money on them, but you imagine that you'll get enough business from them that it'll more than make up for the money you're losing on acquiring them, it might make sense to take a hit on that client, right?
Yeah, and ideally, your CLV, or customer lifetime value, should take that into account. You should be able to say, and again, this is the problem with low volume. Like if you're a boutique and you don't have a lot of clients, it's tough to answer this question. You have to be more exact than having an estimate. But you should be able to say, okay, our customers on average refer to us, $100,000 worth of new business, net new business, over the time that they are our client. And so you should then add that in to your customer lifetime value.
No, let me ask this, because this is something that I actually don't know. If you factor that into your customer's lifetime value, the new customers that you get, would their acquisition be 0 and their lifetime value be the amount that they, like, would you basically be double counting the value that they bring in?
If you get a referral, if you have client A, and client A refers prospect B to you, and you close prospect B with no whining, no dining, no expenses, then yeah, the cost of acquisition for prospect B is 0.
Gotcha. And so we talked about how this would, it's hard, it's difficult, it's time consuming. And that's the reason people don't want to do it. It's because it's a bit of a drag. Should you be hiring folks to do this kind of stuff, or do you keep it in-house? I guess it depends on the size of the company, but is it better to outsource this kind of expertise, or to keep it in-house so that you can sort of have everyone understand how the process works?
The problem with outsourcing it is I don't want to give access to the things that wouldn't have to be given. I don't want to give some third party access to, other than our accountants, who is outsourced. I don't want to give them access to our QuickBooks, and I don't want to give our accountants access to our AdWords. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's really tough to outsource this. It's kind of better to hire a single person within your company, and that single person isn't necessarily responsible for creating these algorithms and formulas and stuff, but they're in charge of getting the numbers, the inputs to put into these formulas and things. So one person who does have access to your QuickBooks account, your AdWords account, your CRM, who can go in there and actually extract these numbers and generate a report at the end of the month based on these numbers.
We got a great question here, and it's actually one I probably should have asked towards the forefront of this conversation. But how do you learn how to do this? I guess, how do you learn how to do the reporting and tracking that we're talking about? It's something that we're basically self-taught on. Is that sort of the recommended avenue?
I mean, so there's some good books, and one of the ones that I just finished is called, oh my gosh, I just wrote a book review on it. It's called
The One-Page Marketing Plan.
Yes.
We actually linked to it in our newsletter this week.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good one, and they go over a lot of, it's like a survey of this stuff, and it's really good. But it's kind of common sense, right? Like if you, it's not when you're like frantically trying to run your business, but if you step back and you're like, how do I? If you step back and you say, how much should I spend on marketing? How do you, or networking or anything? How do you actually answer that question without knowing what you're getting? So it'd be like, how much do I spend on a car? Well, what do you need to know to answer that question? You need to know like the estimated resale value of the car, like you know, its safety features. You need to know like the lifetime of the car, like how long is it predicted to last, average maintenance cost for that vehicle, things like that. So that's kind of how you start out. Is you're like, how much should I spend on marketing? How much should I spend on networking? Well, I need to know what I'm getting, and what I'm getting is a new customer. But what's that worth to me? And so if you just take it like that, like step by step, it actually is common sense. And the first step is laying out what you need to know. Don't worry about how you're going to get it. Don't worry about how you're going to get that information, because then you'll be like paralyzed, because you really will be like, oh, it's going to take a lot of work, and it is. But just lay out what you need to know, and then figure out how to get those numbers, and then figure out how to automate those numbers when and if you can. So, for example, if we were a giant company, which we're not, we could automate some of this stuff where we could pull the data from QuickBooks using their API, and we could pull the data from CRM using an API, and we could pull these data from all these different sources, and we could generate a customer lifetime value and a cost of acquisition, assuming we're doing our due diligence for tagging all this data correctly, which is there's no automating that. You have to instruct your workforce and your employees how to do things. Otherwise, the data will be in there, but you have no way of getting it. So at that point, again, it's a cost. It's like, okay, we can have developers write all these integrations, which will probably take 2-3 months. And in that time, they won't be productive at all. Or we can have one dedicated person go and extract this data to put into the report. So it is kind of like a cost benefit analysis, even on that level, on who's doing it and what manner. But again, you shouldn't even think about automating it until you actually are getting the data.
Yeah, and I think as far as you're talking about sort of being paralyzed by the size of the project, I think just trying to do it is better than doing nothing at all. It's sort of what you talk about all the time is what gets measured gets improved. And I think even if your metrics are wrong, even if you're not capturing everything, as long as you're sort of taking steps towards a better understanding of your biz dev strategy and its success, that's better than doing nothing at all.
Right, exactly. And so, you're right. It's like anything else. The first few times you do it, it's going to be more time consuming, and you're going to get better and better at it. Yep.
Any final thoughts on tracking and reporting as far as business development goes?
You know what? It like you said, it really is like a it is really like a art and a science. And a lot of it, what we talk about all the time, it goes back to process. Like we mentioned that basically what our networking team does is if they go out and they're meeting with a client, they write networking on the receipt and the name of the client. And then we have our administrative assistant who does the bookkeeping. When they put it in QuickBooks, they take the receipt, they put in the value, they put in biz dev networking and who the networker was, so Cody, and then who the prospect was, right? That's one way to do it. There could be a better way to do it. But again, this is the best way we figured out. So it is like an art in that regard of figuring out the best way to implement a process for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be on a per company basis, really. It's going to be whatever works for your organization, largely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think that, like you said, can you outsource this, or is there a tool? That's why I don't think there's a tool out there, because there's so many different ways to go about doing this that there's not enough volume. You know what I mean? Like if there was a company out there that did integrations for exactly how we enter our information into QuickBooks and stuff like that, then they'd maybe have like 3 customers, So
yeah, it is tough because business development is, we talked about this in previous episodes, even the terminology isn't identical from one company to the next. Everyone sort of has their own way of doing things.
Right, exactly.
We actually had another question here that I was going to try and close on that, but it's actually a really good question, which is how successful has reporting and tracking been for you guys as far as business development goes?
Well, it's huge. We, in so much so that we eliminated a lot of activities that were not moving the needle, and also it allows us to say these activities are really, really big. So one of the things that like we weren't doing, and kind of like from another book that was a little bit useful, was like Flip the Funnel. We weren't nurturing very well. We were taking care of our clients, but we weren't like asking them for referrals or like equipping them with the information necessary to get us referrals. And that's actually the highest conversion we have, is when our existing clients refer someone to us. That has our highest conversion rate and our lowest cost. So why weren't we focusing more on that? Well, because you don't really know, you know, word of mouth marketing is powerful, but you don't know how to facilitate it. You don't know how to increase it. And you don't know exactly how powerful it is until you see, like,
yeah, once you have those objective numbers, that really just smacks you in the face.
Right. Like, okay, we spent $10,000 on this marketing campaign, and it was great. We got a new customer out of it. Great. But that new customer, their first project is a $10,000 project. So we're kind of even, and which again, that's great. But then if you look at it and you're like, wow, we got 3 new clients from existing customer referrals, and it cost us nothing. You know, given our constraint of resources, where are we going to put most of our efforts? To another $10,000 marketing campaign, or to getting more referrals from existing clients? You know, so it really is illuminating in that respect.
Maybe end on a good place to end might be advice for smaller businesses who might not have the resources we have. I mean, we're not a huge company, but we obviously have folks who can hop on a reporting and tracking projects as needed. What about sort of the bootstrapping company who, you know, is 2, 3, 4 people, and they're trying to figure out the best way to get started with reporting and tracking their marketing efforts? What recommendations would you have for them?
Yeah, and so we still do this today, but act like you're a big company. And so no, you can't assign things to a different person, but you can assign things to a different role. So let's say you're a one-person company, you're playing the role of everyone, but you need to define what those roles are. Like we talked about, an administrative assistant, a networker, a salesperson.
Yep.
You may not have a person for each of these roles. As a matter of fact, you may be fulfilling all of these roles, but when you're writing out your plan for tracking, assign the roles to each item, each task. And that'll help you when you actually do hire. You're like, okay, your role is salesperson. Here's what you do. Because you've already figured it out on your own by assigning yourself every role.
And come up with a method, I guess, for each of the steps, and write it down and make it a whole process. Because then it's so much easier to, and this is something that we're doing as well, it's so much easier to move pieces around, or to bring someone new on board and have them up and running within a couple days.
Right, exactly.
And another interesting thing, just as an aside, if you're wearing multiple hats for your company, or wearing all hats, if you divide weeks up, like just take a day to wear the marketing hat, take a day to wear the developing hat, take a day to wear the administrative assistant hat. It somehow makes it easier to get your tasks done if you sort of put yourself in the proper mindset for that given day.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice, actually. Definitely.
So that's probably a good place to end it. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode. Hop on our Facebook page and sign up for the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. And while you're on our Facebook page, answer our question of the week, which this week is, have you bought a computer in the past 3 years? And I guess I didn't define computer. I think it's sort of fuzzy what a computer is at this point, but let's say like a laptop or desktop computer. Have you bought one of those in the past 3 years? And if you have, I can't wait to see how many people have actually bought a computer in the past 3 years, because my computers are half a decade old at this point, and still cooking, still great machines. So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question. You can check out the blog post for this episode at gunnertech.com. The podcast will be available on iTunes. Check out our ebooks on Amazon, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. And make sure to tune in next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Dario, that's Cody. We'll see you next week.